My image defines my worth.
I must stay positive.
I'm fine. No one cares.
I am unlovable.
I must do it
My
alone.
story isn't important.
It's okay to be honest. I am enough.
Somebody cares.
I do not have to do this alone.
I am imperfectly perfect.
My beauty comes from within.
My voice matters.
I am loved. It's okay to not be okay.
My story has value.
All right, so today we are thinking about the theme or the lie that we can believe that no one cares. And for yesterday's theme, for the first theme of 10 for 10, we talked about I'm not enough. And I think these, in all mental wellness, mental health conversations, they're related in some way, right? And I think often when we don't feel that we're enough, sometimes the next thing our brain, our bodies can tell us is, and no one cares. So what are some things, some examples or ideas, thoughts around that y'all may have?
So for me, when I was in 5th grade, it was the start of, I think, 2020, so it was a great way to kick off 2020. I was really struggling, and it just kind of started, and like my stomach would hurt. And I remember it was like New Year's Eve, and I was sitting up in my room, and we had a party going on, and I just like felt like I was gonna throw up. And I was like, okay, I just have like a little bug. And like the next day, I would go to school, and I came home because I just felt like I was gonna throw up. I never did, but I always felt that way. And for a while there, we tried out a couple doctors, all of that. And then we kind of went around, okay, it's just anxiety, because I've always been an anxious person. And I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, this would not make sense. But I kind of I trusted everyone. I was like, okay. And it just kept going on for a really long time. And so we went to more doctors and we tried to figure it out, and we're still trying to figure it out. But for a while there, when I was at school, school became like really, really hard for me because I had a headache. We're trying to figure out some of it. I might have had a migraine then. And a lot of school, it was like, just stay in school. Because if it's anxiety, then you have to stay in school. And then it's just going to get better. It's just going to, with time, get better. And part of me was like, that just doesn't seem right. And everyone was kind of like, okay, just like stay at school. And so in those moments, it really did feel like nobody cared. And I would say to myself, nobody really does care. Like, this is just how I'm going to have to live. And it wasn't like that, and it did start to get better, and it is progressively getting better. Mm-hmm. But in those moments, it did feel like no one cared.
And how was that, if I may, like, with the no one cares, like, how did that play into, kind of how, like, you saw this whole thing for yourself, and how you saw yourself in the middle of that?
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of like previously, like with I'm not enough, that's kind of like what it led to is maybe I'm just not strong. Maybe everyone kind of feels this way sometimes, and I'm just the one person that just can't handle it. And with everyone not necessarily putting it off, but to me it was such a big deal. Like, it was something that was like I would think about like every second of my life. And for a lot of others, it wasn't that big of a deal. And it would seem like they thought that it wasn't that big of a deal just because of their opinions and how they tried to tackle that. And so for me, it was kind of like, oh, like maybe they just don't care about me. And it was all kind of a mess, but I think it kind of led to like me taking time to think like maybe nobody does care. And then it was, what if I'm not enough? And it just led me down a path that wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm. And we'll have more circular conversation in a minute with all of us, but one more follow-up with that, because I think we can have our own examples that I think can relate to this story and bring up ideas in our own minds. And you said it's progressively getting better. Yes, that led you to not feeling enough, and that, as we've said often, that's part of the journey, right? There's not like this A to B and now I'm better, but you said there's movement. Like, what's helped you in that movement of not maybe believing the lie that no one cares?
I think sometimes I actually talked to you a little bit in that time, and just having someone that listens. I think most of the people I talked about, my parents, everyone, was super supportive, but everyone that I talked to, when I would talk to them, I came at it as, okay, I'm talking to you because I need you to fix me, because I just felt like I was in a state of panic. And when I talked to you and I talked to a couple other people, it was more of just, I want to explain myself. And just to be heard and to know that I'm valid and that this is okay, and it's okay not to be okay. That really helped. And just over time, I started to work through it a little bit, and I do think it's gotten substantially better.
Nice. Yeah. Nick, you were kind of leaning in and nodding along.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, when they think about it, they'll have a different variation. I mean, I think a lot of people, especially when you're struggling with mental health, a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm just going to keep this in, or it's my burden to carry. I don't want to put it on somebody else. And I think that's a lot of self-deprecation. And then I think you get to that point where it's nobody cares and I'm going to have to do it on my own, which is not healthy. I mean, I think anybody can have those moments, but I definitely, in your story, I was getting that too, people can be supportive, but that, I mean, it doesn't stop those feelings from coming in,
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this?
And I think with nobody cares, people do care. And it's lies that you're believing, that you're telling yourself. And people do care. And now looking back on that moment, when I was in it, it felt like the world was just crashing in and nothing was ever going to get better. But looking back on it, people did care. And I had so much support and love. And sometimes how people show you and act when you try to explain yourself to them is not really how you would want them to, but they do care, and they want the best for you.
Yeah, thinking about the school, some people probably, a lot of people do care, but sometimes the way they're caring for us or isn't what we need, or they don't know how to give us that help. And I mean, that all leads to people being oh, you're not helping me in the way I need, and it can feel like they don't care because they're not doing what I really need. But sometimes it just takes that understanding and that conversation to get to, you are trying to help me, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, what Nick said, the teachers, they are trying super hard, and adults are trying super hard, and everybody's probably trying hard, but they don't know.
Well, and I think that's an important part of, at the end of the day, why we're here, why we're having these conversations, right? Of just as much as, and I want to say, Ryder, it's valid that's your feelings, right? And to not feel heard or understood is a real feeling. And I think the reality of some of this is that the people that are there to help you are probably having some source of feeling the same way of I don't think this person cares how much I'm trying, or however that is. And that's the idea with this mental wellness, mental health journey, is we're all on the journey, right? It's not this thing that we just arrived at and we hit a certain age and now we've made it and we're good. That on this journey, on both sides, there's that, and it's that doesn't make anybody's feelings on either side more or less, but I think it helps us gain perspective and to be able to put those things out here for us to kind of have a springboard to continue these conversations with those around us that are trying to care for us as well.
I think it is important to remember that people do care about you, and something that was always really important for me is my parents would always say, we're not giving up on you. And that was just really important. And you have to tell yourself, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on myself. Right. And you can't just let yourself just lay in bed all day. You have to get out there, and you have to fight it, because it will get better, but you don't want to waste a year of your life while you're waiting for it to get better, because you're not going to give up on yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you for this conversation. A reminder that that those around us are trying for ways to care for us, but also to acknowledge that we do feel these things and be able to work through them as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you again for this conversation, for acknowledging together that sometimes we feel like no one cares. It's hard to admit that, but I think it's important to. Because admitting how we feel is how we learn, how we grow. So thank you to those that were able to be a part of this conversation that you just watched and opening up, but also to you for watching it, for being a part of this conversation in so many other areas, other communities, and other parts of life. I encourage us to continue to bring openness to these conversations, to know that there are resources available at the links below, specifically about this topic, but also in general as well. And also, this is something I said yesterday, and I'll say each day: if you're ever in a situation that you or someone you know is in danger, that you seek professional help. The time is always right when it comes to that question. That is a way that we can show love to one another. These conversations are ways for us to open this up before it gets to that point, or to know that people aren't alone, but also when that happens, or if that happens, that it's always right to get help and receive help. Please know that people care for you. There are times it may not feel that way, and I'm here to acknowledge that and know that that's a reality, but also to remind you that there are people that care deeply about who you are and care deeply about you knowing that you are cared for and you are loved. We'll see you tomorrow for day 3 of 10 for 10.